Hey everyone. Thank you, Afra. By the way, the recordings are uploaded to Litmus by Lior Abramov. And you can continuously find everything that we've been covering, all the presentations and all the recordings of all the sessions there. I'll share the link of Litmus again, but if you missed a session, you can find it there.
Share the link again.
I will. So again, back to firewall sales training. This was the original agenda. Where are we on the original agenda? We are here. This is what we're going to talk about today. But before that, just a brief recap of what we've done. We've covered what are legacy firewalls so that you get a better understanding of what those actually are. We've covered the new alternative use cases that we're tackling. So an alternative to enterprise data center firewall, user to data center access, and cloud, virtual cloud firewall replacement. And we also covered who are we targeting, the different personas, the different type of companies, what would be the triggers for us to offer Guardicore as the alternative. And now what we're going to do today is tell the alternative story. So actually the new first call deck. Let me see, there's something in the chat. Oh, okay. So there's the new first call deck, which I'll go through with you today. And you'll see it and I'll pitch it to you. And of course, any comments, suggestions, changes, thoughts are welcome. And there, we're also going to see a few of the new demo scenarios that are tailored to the 3 use cases today. All of these have material ready, so SEs, don't worry, you have the material to use, and you can use the new first call deck. Another thing that we already did was the objection handling panel, which was last week, around how to better tackle objections. That it was also recorded, it's also in Litmus. Be sure to review that if you haven't, and if you have any additional objections, raise them. Remember, this is for you. Ask questions, anything else that you want to learn, reach out. And if you have a firewall alternative deal in the pipeline, let's talk. Great. So let's dive into this. This is the new first call deck. And I'm going to be going through the pitch, but also just so that you know that we also have speaker notes for the different slides. You'll actually find the different stories within the slides. These are updated and these are for you to use. Make sure to review them and give us your thoughts. Okay. Let's dive into this. So rethinking your firewall. Hello, we are Guardicore, and we're going to talk about how you can rethink your firewall and how software-based segmentation optimizes speed, security, and cost as an alternative to legacy firewalls for east-west segmentation. Legacy firewalls are obsolete. And we say this because, well, this might sound like a dramatic statement to some people. But it's the reason that we say this is because firewalls were invented sometime in the 1990s. And they actually haven't evolved much since. Maybe around 1995 or 2005, there was introduced the next generation firewall. But then the world has changed since that date. The world has become a hybrid environment, and legacy firewalls haven't actually changed that much. So we're saying that legacy firewalls are obsolete because, as you'll see, and as you're probably experiencing today, they are cumbersome to manage. Sometimes people are even afraid to touch them because some things have stayed there, rules have stayed there for years, and they're cumbersome to manage. It takes a very long time to reach policy, if at all, for a lot of the segmentation cases, and the costs of management are extremely high. There are better solutions out there, and as we can see, the world is willing to shift away from legacy firewalls, which is why we are claiming legacy firewalls are obsolete. The reasons we're actually saying this is because of 3 different major things. There are others, but these are the 3 major ones. The first one is they are too slow and complex. If you think about it, taking your legacy firewall, they have no visibility to actually provide you, maybe some log format, but nothing that you can actually understand and use as a means to create policy. They offer very complex rule sets, and they require a lot of network changes in order to create policies. You'll actually find yourself making network changes, changing IPs, moving assets between different VLANs, reconfiguring routers, shutting down critical applications, and all of that just to be able to segment them and secure them. So legacy firewalls are too slow and complex. They're also the expanding attack surface. The world is changing, as we mentioned before. Legacy firewalls haven't changed much since the 1990s, but the world has actually changed. We see environments that are now extremely hybrid. You have on-premises, bare metal, virtual, cloud, containers, SaaS services, and the world has actually changed, and there is no real perimeter anymore to secure, but legacy firewalls haven't changed that much to support these new deployments, which introduce a lot of risk into the environment. And the costs are extremely high. We're not only talking about the cost of the actual hardware or virtual box in the cloud for your firewall. We're talking about the cost of management, the time that it takes you to reach policy, the amount of full-time employees that need to work on the project. So 3 major things are actually causing firewalls to be obsolete today. And those are the complexity, slowness, the expanding attack surface, and the risk that they introduce, as well as the escalating costs. Now, this here, and because this is kind of a pitch for everyone to be able to maybe hear it and also try to then, of course, use this, the idea is also to, at these points, introduce questions. So this can be a great question to ask them. How much time usually would it take them to secure an application with legacy firewalls? The average that we hear about is around more than 6 to 8 weeks for a single application, which is a small application. In some other cases, it can be months. So we can kind of guide the conversation here to lead to a conversation around, do they experience these complexities? And then there's the better alternative, which Guardicore provides. There are 3 major things that Guardicore provides that offer a better alternative to the complexity, the expanding attack surface, and escalating costs. We offer a faster solution, faster time to policy, which means that you'll be more secure faster. For example, what we have here is a case of the Honey Baked Hams, which attempted to secure 45 applications, and they initially attempted to do this with legacy firewalls. I think it was Fortinet, and they attempted to do this for 1.5 years with no success. And with Guardicore, they were able to achieve this in 6 weeks with no downtime and no network changes required. So it's faster, not only because it's software-based, but also the fact that there are no network changes required. It's powered by visibility, as we'll talk about in a minute, enables you to achieve policies instead of 1.5 years in 6 weeks. So 20 times faster than legacy firewalls. More so, we do this at lower risk. We introduce process-level application-aware policies, user-level policies, and we enable you to reduce your attack surface by up to 99%. And this is an actual customer testimony. And we even provide a report for you to execute in your environment to then be able to actually analyze this risk. And we provide all of this at lower cost. And again, we're not talking about the cost of software only. We're actually talking about the cost of management, the total cost of ownership. It's 85% TCO savings over legacy firewalls, and the time that it takes you to achieve this in the amount of people on a project. In the case of the Honey Baked Hams, for example, it was 1 security architect with Guardicore, but with legacy firewalls, it was more than 5 team members. So it's total cost savings of 85%, and overall, it's faster, lower risk, and lower cost with the better alternative, which is software-based segmentation. So it is time to rethink firewalls. Instead of taking the old way, which is very network-centric and secure and focusing on the network, IP changes are required. Everything was architected around the firewall within the network to be able to secure the environment. It is very much tied to the specific to the specific environment. VLANs, for example, on premises do not extend to the cloud. You'd have to use another solution for a cloud environment. So you'd have to, so in the old way, you would have to use multiple different solutions. Well, in the new way, software-based, it's actually workload-centric. It requires no downtime, no network changes, and it enables you greater agility and application-aware policies. We also offer the advantages of software-based segmentation are around both operations, but also greater security. We enable fast and non-destructive solution to deploy. It's all agent-based. We provide simple AI-based policy creation that is intuitive and powered by visibility. Visibility is actually an enabler to create policies. It's fast and intuitive. It scales as you need, and it's consistent and greater security. Same set of policies across any environment, so greater security. And we enable you to support any segmentation use case down to very granular cases and to extend security to users and endpoints, all from the same solution. Before I dive into the rest of the presentation, I do want to pause to ask if there are any questions so far about the flow of the presentation or anything around any slide. I hope silence is a good thing.
Well, I like it. I use it already, to be honest.
Now that you found it.
It's a first call deck for firewall, but we need a first call deck that also includes ransomware and other hooks that we are throwing in the first call to catch the customer, zero trust ransomware segmentation. So I think that in the first call we don't we need to throw a few more hooks. At least have one hook on ransomware, one hook on zero trust, etc. So to catch the customer eventually.
I think that's great feedback.
Ofer, what percentage of time do you do a first call deck and you don't already know you're about to talk about a firewall? Like it seems like the first call deck, if you don't know anything about anything, could have all those features. But to me, this is the first call deck you would use after the SDM has already sort of like figured out that there is a firewall interest.
I don't know. I had the first call with a CISO on Thursday, and I took this presentation and I realized that it's not the right. I'm missing some of the hooks that I want to share with him, that I know that ransomware is extremely hot now. And if I will not talk about ransomware, I might be stay only on the firewall. So if indeed we already discovered that this is a completely firewall opportunity, so the focus is on the firewall. But I think that we need to have, even if it is a firewall focused, we need to have something about ransomware to make sure that we catch the urgency of the customer and not become kind of, okay, in the renewal stage of the firewall, let's look at that. There is no urgency.
Ransomware, I guess my point is, you presumably you know something like this is not the deck if it's a pure microsegmentation case either. You would have a microsegmentation slides for that. So I just want to understand if what you're looking for is like chapters for any possible intro conversation. I think the time you'd walk through a deck is not if you know nothing about them. You'd probably ask a few questions before you put the deck together. That's what I'm just asking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't think that we need all the audience here on this discussion, but eventually, when you are a multi use cases, when it's one use case, it's easy. When it's starting to have several attack angles, you need to have the ability to have one or something that is comprehensive, and then deep dive into something. All right.
Okay. I want to add something. I want to add something here.
Yeah.
One quick comment, if I'm allowed. I agree with Ofer, yeah, and for the following reason, because sometimes there is one chance for an introduction to a new customer. Yeah, and if we miss this chance to speak about ransomware, if we miss to speak about visibility, there won't be a second chance. At least we need to have slides in there covering visibility on one slide, and also ransomware on one slide, what we can do, what we can offer. Now, because if we do a first introduction, for us, it's always to gain the interest, in order to also have follow-up sessions.
I think that makes sense. My point is, this is the firewall deck, not the only first call deck. So if what you're saying is we need a first call deck that is universally applicable, we need to call it that, probably label it that, have a firewall chapter, and then you'll have your ransomware section also. My only point is, like, this is the firewall first call deck, like, that's the topic. And so I think this is a very important discussion. We don't have to figure it out now, but for the point is, like, we are drowning in slides. We have 35 first call decks. Let's figure out the solution that works for your team and then go design it. That's my point. And if you know something about the conversation, you pull your slides in for it. I want to make sure we're aiming for the right end, not like replacing this with one that's now a ransomware deck that misses the firewall slides. That's my only point. Let's figure out.
I'm gonna ask to, like, take this conversation to another opportunity, because my call for suggestions was really around the firewall deck. I appreciate the feedback around what we can additionally add beyond our firewall story, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and make that happen. But let's first focus on, this is specifically around the firewall training and our firewall pitch. So around our firewall story, I did pause here before talking about our solution, just to give the opportunity for any feedback about the flow, if it makes sense to you, to begin from why legacy firewalls are obsolete, the pain points, do these resonate with you after our previous training sessions, and does the alternative now make sense following everything that we've reviewed so far? Is silence good? Is silence bad?
Yeah, I would, in the old way, by the way, Avishag, I also saw it when I presented that last week, that the bad thing about the old way is small letters at the bottom, and you easily miss it because it's a busy slide. So the old way versus the new way, the conclusion should be much more evident. You see, if virtual firewall appliances creating network choke points, it's very easy to just miss it and move on. And that's the main argument here. The main. All right, let's.
Making the pain points resonate. Okay, I'll move on. Thank you. Think about this as we go through the rest of the slides. Okay, if you have thoughts around our firewall's pitch and how you would pitch it to customers, this is really a tool for you to use when talking about Guardicore as the alternative to firewalls. Okay. So after we discuss the advantages of software-based segmentation versus legacy firewalls, we dive into Guardicore's key capabilities. This is a new rendition of a slide I hope you all know well. So we focus on visibility. Dietmar, this is maybe somewhat near what you were looking for. There's another slide around visibility coming up next. So our key capabilities, which are visibility and certainty across any environment. This can be a good place to describe what we do, which is visibility across endpoints and assets wherever they are, on premises, cloud, bare metal, virtual machines, containers, doesn't matter. And the ability to visualize down to process and user level across your whole environment. And this visibility empowers you to create policies based on what is actually happening in your data center. You can make data-driven decisions to create the right policies with AI-powered segmentation. We are distributed and infrastructure agnostic, meaning it's the same set of security standard across any environment, on-prem, cloud, endpoints, virtual or bare metal. And policies adapt to change. Policies follow workloads wherever they go. So as your environment scales up, down, or migrates to new environments, policies will follow assets wherever they go, and assets will be born into secure environments. Versus the old way that was very IP-centric and centralized around the network, Guardicore's approach is based around abstraction of policies and workloads. So you can create policies based on the different environments, for example, production and an application to any other application in a way that is human readable and you can actually manage. There are common engagement approaches of Guardicore as an alternative to firewalls. There is the very classic combination of Guardicore and legacy firewalls, where you would keep your legacy firewalls in the perimeter. This is the most the most common use case. You would keep your legacy firewalls in the perimeter for north-south security, while Guardicore would be the major tool for segmentation, the only tool for segmentation for your east-west environments, wherever those reside, and enable any segmentation use case for your east-west. There is also the Guardicore exclusive approach, where our customers adopt Guardicore only for east-south as well as northwest in the cases of new data centers, usually new cloud deployments, where you would use Guardicore as the single alternative to firewalls, and sometimes for key projects encountering firewall and cost and time obstacles. And there is also a phased transition to Guardicore as the exclusive. We have customers such as UBS, who have a strategic plan of shifting away from all their legacy firewalls eventually to use Guardicore. And these are usually in the cases where this would be a strategic approach within the company to consolidate using different firewall tools across different environments into a single solution, such as Guardicore. And usually this would be driven by a desire for greater agility and standardization of policies across any environment. We also have customer cases here around real world impact, the business requirement and the impact that Guardicore had in the environment as an alternative to legacy firewalls. It can be a business requirement, for example, was to meet a new security requirement quickly and economically, and Guardicore enabled our customer to do this with more agility, less risk, and with lower cost. Similarly, we have an additional use case of migration to the cloud, which we were able to accelerate the migration, for example, instead of several months to 2 weeks with greater visibility and flexible policies. So not only was the migration so much faster, but also assets were then born into a secure environment. And we also enable preventing high-risk user-to-user communication by securing end-user connections. And preventing lateral movement between endpoints. For example, this can be a great place also to mention ransomware and how we mitigate ransomware propagation or lateral movement between different endpoints. So let's cover a few of those cases. We'll start with Fortune 50 Bank. I hope you all here know that this is Deutsche Bank, but it's not a public logo, so we're going to go for Fortune 50 Bank, where the case was to separate environments. They actually needed to separate production from development. They had over 30,000 servers, where 10,000 of them were non-compliant. And they actually needed to separate those environments. They initially attempted to do this with traditional tools. It took them over 2 years with no real success, and they were constantly fined for not reaching the needed compliance regulations of separation that they were required to meet. And eventually, they decided to shift away from the traditional approach and use Guardicore as the solution. We were able to enable them to finish the project within 6 months, and according here to the VP of Advanced Security Solutions at this bank, what we were able to accomplish together with Guardicore it was something that hasn't been done in the industry before. Similarly, there is another use case here of the honey-baked hams, where they had to meet security requirements quickly and cost effectively. And in this case, they actually attempted to secure 45 applications. They had to meet a deadline of New Year's and secure 45 applications before, because New Year's is a major time of the year where they actually have a huge amount of people buying their products, and it accounts for about a quarter of their yearly revenue around New Year's. So they had to secure these applications. There was a requirement to secure them before New Year's, so they had a couple of months to do this. They initially tried to do it with legacy firewall vendors. In this specific case, it was Fortinet, and they established that if they were to do this with Fortinet, they would have finished the project in a year and a half. Now, that was not the 2 months that they had to finish the project, and they understood that that legacy firewalls is probably not the approach, and there has to be a better solution out there. They eventually selected Guardicore with the software-based approach to segmentation, and we were able to secure 45 applications without interruption, and this is the quote here from David Stennett, in just 6 weeks, with a more agile, cost-effective, and secure solution than their legacy firewall provider. So they did meet their security requirements quickly and cost-effectively. Another use case that we have here is a global investment firm. In this case, this is here TPG, and their usual case here, and I'm going to open this up here for just so that you can see that I know that some of these are anonymized, but there are also speaker notes for each one of them with the business challenge and the issues involved. So don't worry, everything I'm saying you will actually be able to find. So there is an additional use case that we can use around a global investment firm. They needed to visualize their complete environment and set policies across any environment for on-prem and cloud. They needed to migrate a lot of their assets to the cloud, and they needed a new standard policy solution. They initially tried to use legacy firewalls for this, established again that they would not meet the requirements or get the visibility needed. And with Guardicore, they were able to achieve this so much easier. So this is an additional example that can be used. And another one here is around BFL, which is a North American insurance firm. And here they actually needed to secure user-to-user access, which is something that legacy firewalls do not enable you to do. They just do not have that capability of securing between any two endpoints, creating policies. And in the case, for example, of preventing lateral movement of a ransomware, this is a very important use case to prevent ransomware or unwarranted connections between endpoints. With Guardicore, they were able to easily achieve this and secure their whole VDI environment and prevent lateral movement between VDIs, but also add an additional layer of security to detect threats with Guardicore's reputation services. And now we have a couple of slides around our own solutions. So visibility and the ability to discuss our visibility in this slide. I'm going to be skipping these because I hope you all know these by now. So there is the overview of visibility control, which is our policies and detection. And a slide that we have here, which is a backup slide in case you need it, is around how you talk about the transition to Guardicore, because one of the major questions that keeps rising is how do we describe the transition to Guardicore in the case where I want to replace a legacy firewall with Guardicore. So usually these would be the steps that we go through. Focused impact, we usually find a specific requirement that they want to achieve, one specific use case, and then deliver that value quickly so that we're up for the task, build confidence within the company, because sometimes we need to create advocates there, and then expand while reducing cost. So expand Guardicore to additional requirements, migrate rules from legacy firewalls to Guardicore in the areas where it makes sense, reduce the legacy firewall footprint, and eventually transition into a hybrid use case, which can potentially be a use case of leaving the legacy firewalls in the perimeter and using Guardicore for the rest of the environment for visibility and policy enforcement. A couple of other slides here that you can use are the attack surface reduction report, which we mentioned earlier on, and around the steps to use it, as well as the deliverable that we provide with that report. And this can also be used. And there's also a slide around the cost savings calculator that we provide. And what questions need to be answered, and eventually our comparison of legacy firewall cost, total cost of ownership versus Guardicore. This is the firewall deck. I understand that we want something maybe a little bit more generic for all the different use cases. We'll make sure to address that. But as the firewall deck, feedback, thoughts, questions.
Maybe, Avishag, something which is a bit more concrete as an example. Let's see the next session, maybe example from,
Okay.
you know, eventually we are using the Deutsche Bank story of 10 months for 150 applications versus 1 or 2 person for a few weeks. Maybe something in that, something which is more tangible, more concrete.
Okay. So you want a different example around Deutsche Bank? And
yeah, this one is concrete. Deutsche Bank is without numbers or something. It's
okay.
more nice.
Okay,
nice
we can do that.
By the way, we have a public quote of Alan Mayers on from April 2019. Which I don't know if we probably can. If we will use that statement, we are allowed to use it with the name Deutsche Bank. Because
okay.
it was on our financial round PR with the name of Deutsche Bank. All right.
Okay.
So now we are moving to
demos.
Yeah.
So the next session is around the demos that are firewall oriented for our story. Before I dive into the demos themselves, I want to show you the tool that you have to practice these. Also, I want to say that part of this training, of course, is